another book. Essential element for string instruments. I want to talk about this book right now because this is a book that I bought years ago when I first tried to learn the violin, and I didn't finish it, but after I finished the other book I felt like I needed to fix some of my mistake in the technique, and while I was working on that I thought, well, it couldn't be hurt to just practice again with some beginner book to just work on my fundamental. And so I picked this and I said to myself, I need to finish this before I buy other book, so I just don't feel like I'm hurting them. And now I want to talk about it because I think that this is a good book. And I'm sorry, but there will be some comparison with this one, because I feel like I should talk about how this handles something that I really like how they handle it, and this at the end handles something that I really like how the way they do it. But let's start on why I bought this. Well, I actually for this made some research, and I found a couple of sites, like I write on Google best beginner book for violin, and I found this one. I bought it, I tried, and after I finished I can say that this is a really good beginner book in itself. The structure of this, it is really simple because it actually doesn't have a real structure. You have a super brief introduction on the violin, just 2 pages, even shorter than the other one. It has a reason, I don't like it, but it's for a reason. And then you start with exercise. Other exercise, there is not really any chapter, anything, just 195 exercise. Roughly they are 4 to 8 bars long. And you start with a lot of technical exercise, but here and there they start to put like very simple melody line that became actually more and more as you progress on the book. So you start to move from technical exercise to actually piece exercise. Here and there you also have this orange rectangle with information that are important, information about the standard notation, information on how to use your left hand, even little drill on how to hold the bow, drill for the left hand, right hand, and overall actually has good information altogether. And then here and there you have this performance spotlight, which are just 2 or 3 pages usually of piece that are also orchestra arrangement. And that's basically it. This is a very, very straightforward, simple book, just exercise after exercise. Now, I want to talk about this book mainly for a couple of reasons. And it's actually the way they handle teaching you the basic of the violin at the same time with teaching you how to read standard notation. As I said, I went for this book, from beginning to an end, without learning a simple thing about standard notation. But here, I was forced to do it because there is no tablature. You need to learn to read standard notation. And you learn it in a very clever way while learning how to play the violin. On the book of Bethany Hall, you start learning the violin simply by learning first, on the first half of the book, just about the first 2 strings, your E and your A. And then in the second half you get the D, and then a little while the G. Here is actually quite different. You spend more than half of the book just on the D and the A string, which seems counterproductive because these are actually in the middle. These are the 2 most difficult to bow because you need to angle the bow right or you are going to touch it. While these 2, they have a so different position that the angle, the bow angle needs to be a lot different, so you have more room for error. But I understand after going through this book the reason why you start from D and A. It's because they're teaching you standard notation also. You have at the beginning this type of format. You start with the D, the open string, and you have the letter inside the note to tell you, look, this is a D, an open string, and they give you this. Then you give you the A, open string, then you practice with this, and each time the note has the letter inside to tell you which note it is. And then you flip the pages and you start to learn, as in the other book, basically the first position, I think it's called, the note, the first 3 notes of each string. So also, they're starting to remove the facilitation in a way that is really clever. They're starting to tell you what the note is just the first time that appears on the bar. So you have time to learn about standard notation in a very natural way. In a way that I didn't understand at the beginning how good it was, because I pick it up without noticing. And this is the reason why they spend a lot of time with just these 2 strings. Not because these are the best string, but because they are in the middle of the measure. You learn every single note in the staff. It's great. It's beautiful. It's beautiful how to handle. And after you start to picking up the bow, you're still working on this thing for quite a long time. I think that you start to get on the G string just on exercise 93. At the half of the book, you start to learn of other notes. And the other 92 exercises are just for you to get to understand the basic of the violin, learning the basic of standard notation, with exercises that became just slightly more difficult as you go. Which, in retrospective, this has a lot more challenging material. You have here half note, quarter note, 16 notes at some point, and also here you have a little bit of triplets and also dot note. This has a lot more simpler material that I think it's probably better for a beginner. There is also the downside that because it's a lot more simpler, you can feel like bored at some point. I definitely was at the very end of this book, because it wasn't that challenging. Honestly speaking, I was focusing a lot more on the drill on how to handle the bow. This was just a complementary thing. So you may run the risk of get bored with this. And on the second problem that this book has is actually why this thing is written. These two have a very different audience. It's both of them are for beginner, but this one is for someone that doesn't have a teacher. It's someone that you use for yourself. This is what, and I really like the format of this. Like I said in the other video, I really like the practice routine on this. This thing doesn't have any of that. This should be used with a teacher. This is also the reason why the introduction on holding the violin and what the violin is so brief, because you are not meant to actually read this. You are meant to have this book, but have a teacher that show you how to handle the violin. Now, I will give to this book an 8 out of 10, mostly because this handled the difficulty really great. You may run the risk to be bored, like I said, but overall this is probably better for a beginner. And also I really like the way that they handle teaching reading standard notation, which works so well. If you want to use this book, I will say you will use it in the same way that I do with this. If you don't have a teacher, go on the internet, find some beginner lesson on how to hold the violin, how to hold the bow with some drill. Do that drill for 5 minutes every single day before practice, and then practice starting with 15 minutes and an exercise each day as you feel like you are strengthening your finger and your endurance. Start to work doing half an hour work, 2 exercises maximum, and you will go at the end of this book in a couple of months with some good skill and with some good basic. This is the reason why I feel this is a little bit better for a beginner. And with this, I finish the 2 books about the violin that I have. I have a third one, which I'm not going to finish, but I will talk in another video about that. I'll talk in the next video about this, because now that I finished this, I need to decide what to practice and how to practice. So new book are coming, and I will see you in the next video and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what we'll do next, and until then, bye.